Good evening and welcome to EDCO PubTalk. I'm Shannon Kelly. I'm so glad to be here with you all tonight in person and live stream. I was reflecting quite a lot this week in preparation for this event, and I was thinking about our community and how lucky we are and how incredible all of you are, and I was thinking about like all of the things we've done. Some of us have closed businesses, and some of us have started businesses, and some of us had babies, and some of us got married, and some of us had illnesses, and some of us got surgeries, and some of us had a puppy, and some of us moved. And aside from all of that, you know what we did? We survived. We survived, right? And thank you. Even better than that, we survived together. So even more importantly, we survived together. So actually, let's really have a round of applause. Why don't we? A round of applause for yourselves and each other. This is huge. What a time to be here, huh? I was also thinking back to my very first pub talk where I took over as MC. This was back before the pandemic started, like way back in July of 1972. We had this epic pub talk out in Sisters at the Three Creeks Brewing Facility, and Josie's Gluten-Free was there, and she is here again tonight. And I'm thinking to myself, this is like one of those special astrological events where all the planets line up in a special way once every 12 years, and like, you're gonna win the lottery, and you're gonna get a new car, and you're gonna have a baby, and I'm gonna cut bangs, and it's gonna be a real banger. It's going to be a wild night. All right, my friends, I am joining you tonight. Very special thanks to OSU Cascades, our MC sponsor, and they have some news to share. They are hosting a webinar. This is an e-commerce webinar on April 7th from 11:30 to 1. This is in partnership with Opportunity Knox. It is titled How to Start Up and Run Your Online Business. So if that is interesting to you, click through, find the information, register, and we'll see you on April 7th. We are able to host Pub Talk tonight, both live and in person and virtually, thanks to our generous event sponsors. So it's my pleasure. I'm so excited because the whole gang is like back together. I get to invite everyone personally to the stage, and I'm going to start with our Pub Talk title sponsor, Jordan Smith, President and CEO at Vlock Systems. Jordan, get on up here.
Hey, how's it going? My name's Jordan Smith with Vlock Systems. Awesome to be back here with you guys tonight. EDCO, thank you for they totally trudged through this thing. We had all the same scheduled pub talks that we've always had via Zoom or in person or whatever was possibly available. So thank you guys hugely for continuing to put this on. Thank you McMinimans for opening up and getting us here and healthy and in all the right ways doing pub talk in this place, in this space. It's great. All 3 rooms or whatever that we're in. There's Aaron, big part of that. Yes, my name's Jordan Smith with Vlock Systems, and gosh, I don't know what happened in the last 2 years, but cybersecurity attacks have just been completely unreal. Who here has heard of a hack? It's a big company in just the last 12 months. Yeah, it's just happening all the time. It's making the news and it's impacting our lives. Things go down now, like Slack or Dropbox or whatever, and it's they're offline. And you used to just think oh, they had a problem with their server or the power went out or something. And now it's okay, who's attacking them? Because that's what's going on out there. So security should be a big deal for us right now. That's something that we are happily walking our clients through. It's how do we maintain secure email phishing? You guys have all gotten emails from your CEO asking you to buy a gift card for their favorite client, right? Don't do that. Always get verbal confirmation. I've heard of CFOs wiring $30,000 to an offshore bank account to support this orphanage that I just found out about. And it's really tragic stories out there. So scrutinize your emails, scrutinize your communication, watch for scams, be on the alert. At Vlock Systems, we have some really cool classes and tests that we do, and we make these little games for our clients and send them phishing emails. And then if they catch them or if they get stumped by them, they win or lose. And so it's kind of fun to kind of gamify that. And then everybody's watching for it and they're ready. So that's just some of the things we do here at Vlock Systems. We try and keep our clients secure in the cybersecurity world. Again, huge thank you to Dr. Shanna. You've been awesome. She was here at 5 o'clock ready to start this. And then learned it was at 5:30. And so thank you for your preparedness and promptness. See you guys. Good night.
Thanks, Jordan. It's true. At 5:03, I was like, "We're doing this thing," and Jordan was like, "It doesn't start till 5:30." And I was like, "You're gonna need to talk to Aaron, okay?" And she was like, "He's right." So here we are. I got a phishing email last week, and I almost went for it until I realized that the amount they were requesting was $1,681, which just seemed very fishy with a PH. You know what I mean? It was very strange. All right, next up, Kurt Barker, attorney and partner at Carnot Peterson. Hey, Kurt.
Hey, everybody. Thank you all for supporting EDCO. It's just such a critical part of driving our community forward, so thank you. Do you remember when we, Carnot Peterson team, we did a better job of saying thank you live, like with a giveaway, something like that? Yeah, we used to do that a little more often, so it only took about a 12-month pandemic or however long it's been for me to figure out that we can include the virtual audience in this too. So Matt, I think, is going to have my back here. He's going to put up my email address. If you want to win tonight's prize giveaway package, it's even the correct email address. KEB as in Kurt Barker, Kurt Eric Barker, at carnop.com. You're going to want to get ready to send me an email. Don't send it yet. I'm going to give you a question. Oh, what can you win? This is a little hard to present here, a little awkward, but it's the Carnot Peterson COVID relief package, also known as a local bourbon sampler kit.
Yes.
So we got Rock and Rye from our friends at Crater Lake. Oh my gosh, bad promo. Could we get a flat podium next time? Sorry. Struggling. Oregon Spirit Distillers.
Woohoo!
And then,
Yes.
and then, gosh, just in case your in-laws are driving you nuts on those holiday Zoom calls, you can hide a little bit of this in here. It says Carnot Peterson, they'll never know. Okay, so I'll ask you a question, tell you just a little bit about our firm, and then we'll do a giveaway as I check my email address. Send me an email in the subject line, please, with the number of years that Carnot Peterson has sponsored PubTalk. If you just send me the number, as long as the email address is associated with your name, we'll get you taken care of. Virtual audience, you can swing by the firm to pick it up, okay? So, gosh, 15 lawyers going strong right here in Bend. Our roots go back, gosh, 80-some years, not me personally, 80-some years for the firm here in town. And boy, the answers are flying in. With a strong business, litigation, and estate planning team, there's not much we can't do to help you get your launch going, to help your startup, or to help businesses that are much, much, much farther along as well. I solve employee problems on a regular basis. So I'm going to have to go with one of the closest answers. I'll give you a hint, it's more than a decade. Aaron was just revealing this. No one has sent the right year yet, but I know I'm going to have to step down. We're going to go with the closest year in just a minute. Gosh, we are not there yet. But I think I better do a giveaway. Let's go with, oh, here we go. Bo Estes, you're real close. It's 12 years. We're going to give it to Bo. It's the closest answer that came in. Bo, if you are not here, if you're here, come grab me in the front of the room or shoot me another message on delivery instructions. We'll get you taken care of. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Thanks, Kurt. And now I know your middle name is Eric.
Yeah.
Eric with a K or a C?
C. Had to think about that.
You look great for 80. I just also want to say you are spry, you are energetic, you're just lovely. Thanks, Kurt. All right, next up, Robin Solomon, Providence Health Plans, Provider Relations Director for Central Oregon. Come on up, Robin.
I was really hoping I didn't have to be next. I don't have anything to give away. Juliana, come on, seriously. I'm Robin Solomon. I work for Providence Health Plan. I do provider contracting and provider relations. Basically what that means is that I negotiate contracts with the hospitals and the providers in the community here in Bend and Eastern Oregon to get the best rates for our members. I also work with the providers as far as dealing with the rules and regulations of a health plan, which is a lot of work sometimes. And the mostly important, I really work with trying to have the best network that we can have for our members in Central Oregon. I've lived in Central Oregon for 34 years, so I'm very familiar with the community and lots of changes that have happened. I've been with the health plan for 26 of those years. Prior to that, I worked at a medical clinic in town, so I've been in the healthcare community for a long time. Being in Bend has given me the opportunity to work with the providers, and I feel like it has made a huge difference in having a great relationship now and in the future. Providence is very committed to staying here in the Bend area, and that is going to help enhance and do great things for building the healthcare in our community and improving the healthcare for Bend and all of Central Oregon. So thank you very much for having us, and we're very excited to be sponsors of EDCO. I was just talking to your president, and I worked in the office here in Bend from 1995 to 2000 when we had an office. I've actually telecommuted since 2000, so this whole COVID thing, no big deal. But we have been sponsors of EDCO for a long, long time, and Jeff Cosmore, my boss at the time, was very active with EDCO, and it's great that we're still doing that, and I'm happy that we're all back in person, so thank you very much.
Thanks, Robin. It's wonderful to have you back. Robin has a big job. I feel like Robin needs a bottle of bourbon, Kurt. Just like something that came up for me. Also wanted to compliment Bo on being lightning fast on picking up his prize. I was like, I have pretty good like body awareness, and he was like right there. It was quite quick and impressive. All right, my friends, Taylor Thompson, Vice President Commercial Banking Officer at Columbia Bank. How you doing, Taylor?
Well, thank you so much. It is really great to be back up here. I'm a little bit rusty, so I don't know when the last time I was up here, but it's been a while. But, you know, thanks, Kurt, for bringing, you know, something to the party. You know, I think Colonel Peterson's probably giving out more free stuff here than on Oprah. It's just incredible. You know, speaking of giving away free stuff, you know, if you have not gotten a PPP loan, Paycheck Protection Loan, you may have seen today that the Senate passed the new PPP Extension Act, which essentially extends the PPP out another couple months. So that's good news for anybody that hasn't gotten one. But if you have gotten one, I want to give you some suggestions. You know, get out there and spend that money. I mean, spend it like a college kid with a new credit card. I mean, get out there and blow that money. But, you know, no, I'm just kidding. You've got to spend it, though, on about 60% on labor. So at minimum, spend on 60%. But I can tell you, we've done about 5,000 of them, about 5,200 of them in this next round. And as a reviewer, I can tell you the easiest way to get a forgiveness on it. And what forgiveness means for you is you've spent that money on at least 60%, but the easiest way to get forgiveness is to spend it all on labor, which is really the kind of the intent of the program, right? It's paycheck protection. So if you can prove that you spent all that money on labor, there's so much less that you have to provide to your bank or to us to get that forgiven for you. And forgiven means, you know, SBA pays the bank back, and then we in turn settle the loan, pay it to zero. So if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us at the Columbia team. We're happy to answer questions on your loans or paycheck protection. But thanks again, EDCO. Thanks. It's great to see everyone again. I can't wait to see what's going to happen this year.
Thanks, Taylor. I get excited anytime somebody's loan gets paid down to zero by the government. That is pretty exciting. Gosh, are you guys just digging this like faint light at the end of the tunnel energy? I am digging it. It's really nice. I'm hearing all these stories of people getting vaccinated and having like huge emotional releases and like joyful community connection moments. It's really something. It's very, very, very encouraging. All right, next up, I'm always happy to introduce EDCO CEO Roger Lee for his Director's Minute. Come on up, Roger.
Thanks, Shannon. Okay, we're gonna have to get this one, Kelsey. So sorry about that. So our sponsors, thank you for continuing to sponsor this event. It's really what makes it go around. So Jordan Taylor, what's your name again? KEB, yeah. So Kurt, thanks for sponsoring, and folks, the new sponsor with Providence, thank you for making that happen and your presence in the region. So thanks for coming up on the stage tonight, Robin. Okay, well, last season on PubTalk, I provided some stats about startups in the U.S. that included some data about how the U.S. compared for what's are known as unicorns. So unicorn is a early stage company or a younger company that makes it to $1 billion in valuation. So pretty kind of a rare event, especially, you know, in our territory and so forth. So usually it takes decades to build that critical mass in order to reach that kind of sales or valuation level. So looking back, we've had our share of unicorns over the years in Oregon. Companies like Nike and Columbia Sportswear, maybe lesser known today, but Tektronix. But there's really been kind of a 30-year drought, so to speak, in the state for unicorns. There have been a few more recently, Brian Vieira, our venture catalyst, who I think is manning the room next door, they were talking about it. It's like, okay, well, who's kind of reached that valuation? And recently, we can only come up with two. Maybe you can come up with others, but Vacasa, who's kind of in the news here, obviously a lot lately, and pivoting and so forth, and Discover.org, which is now ZoomInfo. They were acquired by ZoomInfo. So a couple of companies that reached that level, but in late 2018, our team came together with our board and drafted out our next kind of 3 years of what we want to accomplish and where we want to see the economy go in the Central Oregon region. And as one of those kind of main goals was to be a top 10 place in the U.S. to start your company. It's kind of a lofty goal, and we've got some kind of amorphic metrics to track that and so forth. But I can tell you that one of those was not that we have $1 billion valuated company that got started here. Just like not in the realm. So who would have expected that Oregon's next unicorn would come from Bend? This may be old news to some of you, but I still have to talk about it. So led by an investment firm, Tiger Global, Dutchy, most recent capital raise of $200 million, placed their valuation at $1.7 billion. That's not even hockey stick growth. It's more like the kind of chart you saw with unemployment in April and May of last year. So so it's more along those lines. So we had Dutchy co-founder Ross Lipson up for our PubTalk keynote back in February 2019. But I'm thinking we need to have him back for a little company update. Yeah. Maybe we can title it something like Garage to Unicorn in 48 months. So, and Dutchy is not the only super exciting local startup on the horizon, despite all the turmoil of the last 12 months. Keep an eye on Vector Remote, featured in our July 2020 PubTalk. ZipCan, which is coming up at a future PubTalk, and Rising Wild is another one to look out for. So, or you can just keep coming to PubTalk and hear their awesome pitches and be the first to hear their sweet unicorn pitch. Thanks, Shannon. Back to
Thanks, Roger. Roger, giving me a run for the joke money. Wow. Noted. All right, wanted to say for our virtual attendees, we want to include you in our Q&A portions tonight. So on the right side of your screen is a chat bar. Just type your questions and comments into the chat bar along the way tonight, and they'll find their way to me. And for those of you here at McMenamins, just raise your hand. You guys still remember how to raise your hand in a public place? Yeah, okay, you got it. All right, on to tonight's early stage companies provided by supporting sponsors Barrett Business Services, Inc., BBSI, wishing all pub talkers a happy spring, only 4 months left for warm weather. If you need recruiting help, temporary staffing, or temp to hire services, connect with BBSI for solutions. Contact Eric Strobel here at PubTalk or go to bbsi.com. And Central Oregon Community College, COCC, who is committed to supporting our region's economic recovery and long-term growth. COCC graduates become engineers and teachers, welders and pastry chefs, computer coders and pharmacy technicians, and 92% of COCC grads stay in Central Oregon, which is just incredible. Reach out to Marketing and Public Relations Director Jen Kovitz to learn more about how COCC can partner with your business needs to meet your workforce training needs. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, there are pancakes in your future. Some of Josie Johnson's main passions are cooking and baking, but when allergies led her to go gluten-free, Josie's Best Gluten-Free Mixes was born. Josie's Best produces gluten-free and allergen-free baking mixes from Sisters, Oregon. Recently, they were featured on Good Morning America, further spreading the word of their delicious mixes. Let's hear from founder and CEO Josie. Come on up, Josie.
Thank you. Hello, as she said, I'm Josie Johnson. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Josie's Best Gluten-Free Mixes. We produce gluten-free and top 8 allergen-free baking mixes. We sell our products across e-commerce channels, including our website and Amazon, as well as lots of wholesale to restaurants, gift box companies, as well as other small independents across the country. I think when I presented in Sisters with you, we were in about 20 stores. We were extremely proud of it. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Excuse me. And now we're in about 400 stores across the country. So thank you. We're really grateful for the growth that we've seen. 2020 was a huge part of that for us. So we started the year thinking we were going to our first big trade show, to Expo West. It was canceled about a day before we were getting on the airplane. So that was a huge blow. We had a lot of time and effort and money put into getting that done and didn't really know how we were going to pivot from it. But as it turned out, there were a lot of opportunities that came from it for pitching virtually, all kinds of exposure virtually. We took as much of that as we could, and it really worked for us. We leaned hard into the social media channels. We really got the ball rolling on our e-commerce. Amazon took off for us. In June, we stocked the entire Pacific Northwest Whole Foods. That was huge for our resume. And so going into August, we'd actually already doubled from 2019. We were a bit overwhelmed, but again, grateful, and homeschooling 3 children as well. So it was busy. In August, we were approached by a woman who helps find businesses for a segment on Good Morning America called Steals and Deals. Steals and Deals is a 1 to 2 day flash sale. It is on the actual segment of Good Morning America, which has about a 6 million viewership. And there's also a huge following that is just there to take part in the deals that come up every week. So exposure-wise, it was huge. We were obviously tickled to be even asked, but they were just interested, and we had to come up with a pitch that they would accept. So included in that was an extremely deep discount on a product, flat rate shipping, a very high minimum that we had to meet, and guidelines as far as how quickly we had to ship out, which was within 2 to 3 days. So basically it meant because the flash sale was only 1 to 2 days, we had to ship out within 2 to 3 days. So we had to be able to produce everything ahead of time with no guarantees on sales. So it was a big number to come up with, to wrap our head around. We were scaling so quickly from where we were, and we'd already done a lot of scaling. So we came up with doing one product, which is this guy right here. So this is our variety pack. It has 1 of each of our 4 mixes: pancake, waffle, crepe, and our muffin and more, which is an all-purpose blend. So these are our retail packages in here. Coming up with one product was a huge help for us because we were able to pre-pack everything without any pick and pack. So we weren't guessing what people were going to order. We knew. So we gave our pitch, and in October, we penned a deal with ABC, a little bit of help from Carnot Peterson, which we appreciated very much. And so our deal was slated for January, and we had from October to January to place our biggest orders with all of our small business suppliers that we'd ever placed by about 4-fold. So to give you an idea what we had to produce, it was 15,000 of these. So that was 50 pallets, 6 feet high. And we'd probably only ever done 1 pallet at that point. So it was a huge undertaking for us. My husband and I run the business. We have 1 other employee. We have 1 other part-time who helps us pack. We work with another family business that co-packs for us. They have about the same amount of employees. So this was a huge, huge undertaking for us, but we knew basically an opportunity of a lifetime. So we certainly met a lot of hurdles. We just always kept pushing through, making it work. We basically had everything built by the time our sale hit. So it was very early in the morning on a Saturday. And basically we were doing more than 2 to 3 orders per minute when it hit for hours and hours. So we had the back end of the website, we did all the customer service, we did all the packing, all the rating, all the above. There was 5 of us, my husband and I, my father and his wife, who are in their later years. They might be watching, so I'm not going to say how old they were. And then our 2 part-time employees. So again, a very small group. We shipped a truckload that weekend. It was pretty amazing to see an actual truck pull up to a dock and get filled with these guys right here. So very rewarding. Again, we had to pre-build for a sellout with no guarantees. So we had a lot of product left over. We had a great sale. We were thrilled with it. But we came home with a lot. And it was a good thing because we've seen a huge increase of sales since. So it's helped us a lot be able to fill those quickly. We've also been able to go after a lot of larger deals. And just this week, in fact, today, I sent the last pallet of our biggest PO ever that's going to a bunch of nurses for International Nurses Day in a gift box. So we're just so grateful for these opportunities that we were able to pull it all off, and we hope to continue to springboard from here. Our focus is really on our e-commerce and some of those B2B businesses, and we're just working on a subscription program and keeping the ball rolling.
Wow. Josie, I love your product. I think you're an excellent presenter, and I just want to say I'm so proud of you.
Thank
this
you
is
so
incredible.
much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
incredible. Really great story. So, when you spoke with us, that was January of 2019, right? Yeah, 2019.
Yeah,
Like, was that a year that we had? And I'm wondering if you have added any new products, or if there are any new products in the works.
So we had big plans to do that, pretty aggressive plans, but they were stopped by sales, basically. We've just really kept our focus on our core products, building those. You know, I think you don't know what you don't know, and I had this thought that, like, wow, we've kind of done what we could with what we have and we need more, but we realize we're just barely at the tip of the iceberg, and creating brand awareness for what we have and leaning into those is what we're going to continue to do. I've got a lot of products built that we just need bags for, and time and money and all that kind of stuff.
That makes sense. That's exciting. Any questions in the room just yet? Yes, Roger.
Josie, when you gave your pitch out at Sisters, you were selling a lot into restaurants and hotels, I think, breakfast kind of service there and so forth. How did that change in the pandemic, and did you really shift it more direct to consumer?
So did your direct-to-business sales, direct-to restaurants, hotels, did that change during the pandemic?
Specifically, restaurants did. Yeah, it pretty much went away. And most of the hotels did as well, which was scary because pre-pandemic, our plan was to push more into that level of things. So we definitely shifted gears. We created some bundles that we sell on Amazon and our website, and just pivoted away from that aspect. We've seen it come back, certainly, but it's definitely the smallest part of our business. I think at that point it was probably about a third. To give you an idea how much e-com has done for us, we do almost half of our business on Amazon now. It's a gigantic part of what we do and our website. So it was a huge shift for us, and it's taken a lot of just different thought process, how we, place orders and the bags we need, and, label printers, all that little stuff that makes it work so we can do all this small pack.
Yeah, not surprising. Very interesting. Any other questions in the room? Yes.
I was curious about your social media. You mentioned that you kind of pushed into that more last year. Were you sharing like recipe ideas with people, or was it just like more just focused on product awareness? And did you guys do your social media in-house, or did you partner with people?
So it's a question around social media. What specifically did you evolve into, and did you do that in-house, or did you hire somebody?
So the answer is yes, as far as what we produced. I mean, again, for me, my time is split between being a mom, and I actually have another job, and doing this. So recipe development is something I can do with my kids. And they love it, and it's fun, and it turns out people like watching that. So we just leaned into that. I cook so much with our products. I create with so many recipes. And so we just started firing away on it. And when I say we, I mean myself and our other employee, who used to be my neighbor and was a girlfriend of mine. And at a certain point, she said, I can do a lot better job than you're doing with your social media. Could I just write maybe a quick hi, who am I for you? And I said, sure. And she did such a good job. I was like, okay, come on in. So that was another really positive thing for the pandemic. She had another job that she worked for in the social media field. That went away, and we were able to hire her full time. And it's probably one of the biggest things we do now. We use influencers and do all that. Again, a huge part of the exposure we got from not going to Expo West was a bunch of these big influencers and companies who said, hey, can we just help you? You're a small guy. and we did as much as we could on that.
Oh, it's so great. Yes.
Just a quick follow-up, what were some of the bigger social media channels that you doubled down on? Was it just like Instagram?
Following up, like what channel specifically did you go into?
Instagram. That would be the main answer, and Facebook. We really haven't done a ton on YouTube just because we're so focused on Instagram, and that's worked really well for us. And again, I think we didn't always do this, but now we really focus where we see light. So Instagram works beautifully for us. We're going to push that ball as far as we can before we branch out too far from that.
Yeah, you're doing a great job on Instagram. I love the shared recipes from other accounts. This is like really
thank you.
fun. Yeah, super fun. Yes. Pinterest.
Yeah, we do Pinterest. That's a very different space. It's really interesting understanding how that all works. So for example, on Instagram, we can tag products in all our posts. We can sell directly from there. Pinterest is a little bit different. So we do, everything goes onto Pinterest, but we're definitely less active on Pinterest.
Hey, Shannon.
Pinterest.
Yes,
We have a question in the theater.
I'm ready for it.
Where are the cookies? Where did they go? Are they coming back? It's not
Thank you
related-
for your question, Theater. This is important journalism.
It's very important. So the cookies are on Instagram. You can go on there. There's tons of recipes. And on our website, and you use our muffin and more mix, and you can have at it.
Awesome. Okay, well, Josie, I'm so proud of
Thank
you.
you
I
so
love
much.
hearing this update. We support you, and I can't wait to hear your next big update. Like, you are just taking it to the moon.
Perfect.
Not literally, hopefully, but you know what I mean.
Maybe.
Thanks, Josie.
Thank you so much. Thank you. To get dressed.
It's true. I know, right? Can you just layer up a little bit? I mean, it's spring. It makes sense. I do see your products on Amazon a lot. I actually purchased them at Locavore, but you do have a great presence on Amazon. It's impressive. I buy exactly one thing on Amazon once a month. Can you guess what it is? This is so boring. One little packet of matcha. I know, so weird. Okay, on to our next update, sponsored by Bend Broadband, who is a proud sponsor of PubTalk and so happy to be a part of such an amazing community. They have some exciting news that they hope will help businesses in the next phase of the pandemic. Bend Broadband is in final production of an ebook to help businesses plan their return to work strategies. They hope to have information on how you can receive this ebook soon, and will follow up with additional detail through this forum. And Central Oregon Association of Realtors, COAR. April is National Fair Housing Month. From the work realtors do on Capitol Hill to the Code of Ethics, realtors go above and beyond and set a higher standard for fairness in housing. Thank you, COAR, for your sponsorship. If anybody remembers traveling, you'll agree that flying on commercial airlines can be inefficient, unpredictable, and exhausting. Boundless was created to raise your transportation expectations by defining a new category of travel, personal aviation. Boundless aims to make your final travel destination more accessible for both pilots and passengers. You can think of it as a charter solution for the environmentally and cost-conscious individual. They are empowering people to move seamlessly between home, work, and play with an elevated mobility solution. Co-founder Ian Gregg isn't new to building startups, but currently has his head in the clouds. Aaron and Elise said something about taking a trip north for some unbeatable Korean barbecue. I'm excited about this, so count me in, and welcome to the stage, Ian.
I am incredibly excited to be here. I just feel grateful that we could be doing this, not just live, but this has been a dream of mine for a couple years, and to be actually talking to you guys about it, it's almost surreal. I almost feel I need to be pinched or at least have another beer. And yes, Korean barbecue, you could have it. It's very accessible. As far as Boundless, as you mentioned, you gave the kind of the pitch of it. It's really about a personalized way to travel and get to where you ultimately want to get to, not just the commercial airport, but where you're actually going. I'll talk more about that in a minute. My co-founder, Toby, he's in the audience. Hopefully he can come up here for the Q&A. A little bit more about me, just to get to know who I am. 20 plus years in startups and growth companies. I spent the last 14 years in the San Francisco Bay Area. My last project was a software AI company that used machine learning algorithms to do artificial intelligence predictions for sales and marketing teams. Sounds very technical, it was, but it learned a lot about the space. I've been doing tech for a long time. Moved to Bend, Oregon a year and a half ago with my wife. Absolutely fell in love with the area and really wanted to plant roots here.
see, a couple other things. I think one thing that's really interesting about Bend is people move here not because it's easy to get to. I think people talk about this being an island. It's very difficult to actually come and go because it's just isolated. But we love it because of all the things you can do. One story for me, if I need to go back to the Bay Area, and I'm sure you guys probably have other stories of how you get around, but it was a bit jarring for me of, say I need to go do a business trip there. Got to wake up an ungodly hour, got to go drive up to Redmond, do TSA parking, waiting at the airport, hopefully the flight's not delayed. You got to get through to Portland, Seattle, do your connecting flight, get to actually San Francisco or San Jose, hope that the Uber or the rental car works out, then fight traffic and actually get to where you're trying to go. And somehow we just accept that this experience is what we have to do to actually get where we want to go. And for those of us that have extra time, we might do this a day early just because we know how exhausting it is. And this is the price we pay for living in an amazing place like Bend. And we're not the only ones that are making this trade-off. Actually, if you look at the trends, people are moving out of the urban centers. People are moving to Tahoe, moving to Bozeman, Flagstaff, St. George, all these awesome Mountain West locations because they also want to make this lifestyle choice of being able to be in an amazing lifestyle location. And it just kind of makes you wonder, how do you accept this mental model of inefficiency that, as I like to call it, the United experience? We sort of accept it, but it's not pleasurable. And it's inefficient. And it's not just inefficient for us as flyers, it's actually inefficient as a mode of transportation. A few stats, 92% of travel is short haul, meaning 1,000 miles or less. So we're not going long distances. The problem with that is it's mainly jet traffic. Most of those short haul flights are still jet. And jets are meant to cruise at high altitude, and that's where they're efficient. On takeoff, they just belch out all sorts of fumes and gas because they just are not efficient at low altitude. 2 to 3x more carbon emissions on those short haul flights than their medium haul neighbors. And so you just wrap your head around this, that we're all focused on these 17 hubs. I mean, I always was proud that when I was in the Bay Area, I lived not too far from the airport, but I still always had to do these connections. And we're flying on these inefficient flights that still are inefficient, unfriendly, TSA, the whole bit. And we just sort of wonder, there's actually over 5,000 public airports in the US. I mean, the Bend has an airport, but I'm just curious, how many people actually have not only aware of that there's a Bend airport, but have actually flown into the Bend airport? 3, okay. Not many. And so it makes us wonder, why don't we actually have an option for flying direct? Being able to do it in an environmentally conscious way that actually is of the same level of efficiency as modern cars, as opposed to these jets. And of course, doing it in a way that's accessible economically for the masses. And that's where Boundless comes in. We're focused on that short haul flight segment, building a network of pilots, planes, and passengers that are focused on this short haul segment and building this network that's both the supply and demand of what we actually need to make a sustainable model. All these other models that we've seen usually fall short on actually making a true network, and a lot of them do fail. But what we're trying to create is this new category, call it personal aviation, that's a tweener market between commercial aviation and charter that is environmentally sustainable. So let me just bring this down to you that is in a level that you could approach. Let's say you want to go to Jackson Hole because they just had a great snow dump. If you want to fly domestically on a commercial carrier, you have to go through Salt Lake. It's going to take you about 6.5 hours door to door. And that aircraft is going to have about 350 kilograms of emissions. Fine, whatever. There's no other options. That's just sort of in our head, that's just what it is. Flying with us, that 6.5 hours door to door goes to about 3. Carbon emissions go from 350 to 70. It's actually more efficient than driving a car. Cost-wise, we can do it about the same, 250, just like a commercial airline. Give you another one. If you want to go to Hillsboro for business. If you want to drive it, it's going to take you about 4 hours. Going with us, it's a little over an hour to Hillsboro, and half the carbon emissions as driving your family SUV. So it just opens up new ways of thinking. Let's go to the California beach today with the kids. Let's go get Korean barbecue in Friday Harbor. Yes, just business trips. This no longer is I have to have 2 different days for traveling or a really long day that I know I'm going to be exhausted from. I can fly same day, do my business trip anywhere on the West Coast, be back with my family same day. We're not the ones that are thinking about this. There's other people that have tried and thought about different models. There's been some low-cost carriers that are working on getting new flights that are focused on these smaller, underserved cities. There's also been a software company that recently launched in the last few years that was trying to build up this sort of network idea, just one side of the network, but they ran into some regulatory problems. They were actually trying to skirt around some of the FAA regulations. We're actually working not only within the bounds of the regulations, but working with the FAA around what we're building with our model. And then the other one is that we do see a lot of jet charter companies that are trying to bring this down. There's been a lot of talk in the pandemic about how do you have better access to charter, and they're trying to play with different business models. But they still inherently have the problem of it being jet charter, very expensive model, and it's going to be really hard to compete and bring it down to the masses. So we're going to win because we're focused on a tweener market. We're focused on aircraft that's going to be a lot more nimble and being able to address people's needs. And we're also building out the full network that these other guys have missed out on in order to build a sustainable model and a model that has network effects. So what does this mean for you guys? We're looking to build our network. So 3 things: pilots, planes, and passengers. So where do you guys fit? Maybe you've thought about wanting to become a pilot one day. Maybe you've wanted to be able to either get your pilot's license, brush off what you used to have, and get your skills brushed up. Maybe you're a current pilot and you would like to be able to fly within our airplanes that we have. Talk to us. Maybe you have a small business and just the accessibility of being able to access different cities you want to get to and the productivity enhancements of being able to fly direct. Talk to us. None of those apply to you, which I'd be surprised if it didn't. Let's just say you had taxable income you wanted to offset. There might be some opportunities to lease back through us and have some opportunities to offset that with some depreciation and get less tax that you would have to pay. So those would be the 3 ways. I know I rocketed through that, but thanks, guys.
Oh, it's so cool. It's so cool, Ian. I'm wondering, like, how does the scheduling work? What do you have a plan? I mean, it's so efficient. So, like, what does that kind of look like? Walk me through it.
So we're just getting started. So we're launching next month. We've got 3 planes coming. And so the idea is to be on demand. So wherever you need to go and you would work with us, we're obviously going to need to build a software app and all those sorts of things. But for now, contact us and we'll get you scheduled.
I am contacting you. Okay. I didn't know we were going to Friday Harbor. It's one of my favorite places. It's so fun. Any questions in the room? Yes.
So is your model, you mentioned that $250. Is there a membership to the company and then the flight fee? Or is it just $250?
In terms of your model, is there a membership or is it just the in-flight fee?
Short answer is it's going to be depending on what your needs are. So there's certainly a pay-as-you-go a la carte. If you're going to fly more, there's a membership that'll reduce your overall cost, but it'll scale with you and be more appreciative of your demand.
And then I know you wanted Toby to come up. I'm wondering, Toby, if you want to join us. I am curious about the planes.
Okay.
And like that
Absolutely.
Experience.
Toby can talk about it. He actually got me my commercial license, so he's
the real deal. Okay, good. So tell us a little bit about the planes.
Yeah, so it's a very exciting time to be flying smaller aircraft, I would say. There's really awesome modern airplanes that are more fuel efficient than ever, that are quicker and they're safer. A lot of the automation we see on our roads with self-driving vehicles and things like that is coming to the air as well, and a lot of that technology is easier to implement. There's no pedestrians walking around up in the skies, right? So beyond what we have today, we expect to see hybrid aircraft in service in the next, within the next 5 years, I'd say, and shortly after that, electric and hydrogen aircraft as well. So the amount of research and development in that space is really exciting to us, but we need end users for those aircraft. So smaller regional carriers like ourselves can be an opportunity to implement that technology far before it's feasible at an airline scale. And that's another thing that makes us very excited.
So cool. Okay, yes.
Can you talk about your third option that you just spoke about?
Can you talk about the third option that you just spoke
in terms
about?
of how to build our network, the taxable income offset. So I'm not a CPA, so I'll just kind of throw that out there. But you either can have it through the business, that you could certainly have an airplane that would have a business use through whatever business you have, and that certainly could be a taxable or a depreciable asset. Or if you didn't, you could certainly still buy the airplane, lease it back to us. We get the business use out of it through our network. And you get not only the income of that lease back to you, but then you have an asset that you could depreciate. That depreciable asset then goes against your taxable income, and your income gets reduced. So it's kind of a win-win.
Bo blah dee, bo blah da. I mean, that's very exciting. Aaron, question. Talk to me about the Bend Airport. Yeah, the Bend Airport out east, not Redmond Airport. Bend. The fuel.
You want to talk about fuel?
Do you want to talk? Who was talking about fuel?
Well, so, I mean, we are also building a physical footprint at the Bend Airport to help support this so that the full experience as a passenger is something you would think of as a modern experience. So there will be a facility there, and we're also, not only having aircraft, but we'll also have our own maintenance and fuel. So actually just last week wrote a check for a fuel farm, so really exciting things. But yes, as part of our operational efficiency and also just serving the community, we'll have a fuel farm and also serve the local pilots there.
I think this is going to be a huge hit with our extreme sportsmen. Yes, sir, in the back.
Wondering if you guys have dedicated routes that you're planning on hitting.
Do you have? You have people asking for pricing guarantees. Do you have plans for like specific flight patterns, like just West Coast, or like how far can I get on 250?
So we're not a scheduled air carrier, so it's on demand. So wherever you want to go. So our focus is on that short haul market that's 1,000 miles or less, and so draw a circle of 1,000 miles, we'll take you there.
How do you book it?
I guess call me.
Call Toby.
Go
I want to go to
website.
Ojai. I'm just going to put that out there.
So if you go to flyboundless.com, that's our website.
Flyboundless.com. We have lots of questions. Okay, I'm going to take one more. Like everybody's. I'm going to take your question.
Okay, you mentioned 3 planes. So what are the 3 planes?
You mentioned 3 planes. What are the 3 planes?
So that's one of them. Not the exact tail number, but that model. So that's a Diamond DA62, seats 7 people. We'll definitely take you on your ski trip to Jackson Hole if you want to. Then we've got 2 smaller aircraft that are more the efficient one, that would be more of that day trip to Portland style, that have a lower cost of entry to get into. It's also a Diamond. It's a DA40. Yep.
DA40. And none of them have ashtrays for smoking, I'm going to go ahead and assume.
No, there's not. Although some of the older aircraft, if you look back at the 60s, they did actually have cigarette and cigar lighters, which I guess if you're cruising at 12,000 feet, having a cigar, it seems appropriate.
I guess. Oh, yeah. Can dogs use these planes? Can they fly them, too? And my dog needs a job. That's the truth.
I've actually taken my dog up to Washington. I haven't taken her to Korean barbecue, but I've taken my dog before.
I love it. This is so cool. Okay, so flyboundless.com for more information. Lots of options here. You guys are incredible. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
See you later. It's so wild because as I was like reading the pitch, I'm like, this is in my imagination, but this is actually real. This is so cool. Thank you, Ian and Toby. All right, on to our keynote for tonight, sponsored by SGA CPAs, who is honored to partner with EDCO in support of our local business community. SGA prides itself on being more than accountants. They are modern advisors with a collaborative strategy focusing on building wealth and sustainable business growth. Thank you to Amber Yates and SGA, also a Platinum EDCO board member. And new to the EDCO PubTalk lineup, Ferguson Wellman Capital Management. Some of you may know Beaver believer and major OSU supporter Mark Krall, principal at Ferguson Wellman. but you'll get to know more of his team in the months to come. Thank you both for sponsoring. Randy Adams is a serial entrepreneur for over 35 years. He's founded 9 venture-backed technology companies, including autonomous vehicle insurance, digital avatars, software publishing, IT, e-commerce, and 2 celebrity-based digital media companies. He's published more than 30 consumer software applications that have collectively sold more than 20 million copies worldwide, raised more than 100 million in venture capital, had 5 successful startup exits return more than $1 billion to investors. He is credited with raising the initial funds for Yahoo, creating the first desktop publishing app for the PC, managing the team that created PDF and Acrobat, and creating the first e-commerce site on the web. Currently, he runs C-level solutions, providing consulting services for early-stage companies. So you're bringing all of that to Bend, and better yet, to PubTalk. My goodness. Welcome to the stage, Managing Partner of C-Level Solutions and Strategic Advisor, Randy Adams.
Well, thank you all very much for coming here tonight and to listen to me, of all people. And I want to thank EDCO and Brian for inviting me. Very appreciative. There we go. And so after all this positive talk, I'm going to talk about failure. There's been too positive up to this point, and I think we need to have a little grounding. And I think that's, at least for me, what all these years of starting companies has been. It kind of grounds you, because when you fail, you're humbled and you learn things. And so what I want to impart tonight is I know the title of the talk is 3 failures, but I was talking to my 18-year-old son, and he said, "Dad, you failed way more times than that. Why are you only doing 3?" And I'm like, I only have so much time, Evan. And so, but I did change it to 4 on his behalf. So, so we'll be talking about 4 failures tonight and lessons learned. But I wanted to say, someone asked me tonight, are you a Bendite? And I'm like, I don't know, because I'm from Maine, and unless you're born there, you can't ever say you're from Maine. But my wife and our 3 kids moved here in November, or actually early in the fall of 2019. And I have 2 boys that are going to be going to OSU next year. Have a 13-year-old that's going to be going to Summit. So I'm hoping I'm a Bendite. I sure love it here. It's wonderful, and we're so happy to be here. And I got my California plates off the car, so that's a really way better thing. It helps in the roundabouts, I've found. So the 5 lessons, I have 5 lessons that go along with these failures. And a little bit of background on me. I grew up on an island in Maine called Mount Desert Island. You might have heard of it. Acadia National Park is there. And it was beautiful, but very isolated. Fortunately, I was able to get away, and that's my high school. I was able to get away and get a chance to go to MIT, where I got an engineering degree. And after, well, I found it isn't exactly right on 10, because there were 6 I don't talk about. They were so bad, but I've actually, to be totally honest, I've founded 16 startups, and here's the logos of all of them. And it took me a while to find all these logos, because some of them are so old. And I've failed way more than I've succeeded. I've actually had 6 successes, not 5, because I'm counting Yahoo now, because I was there at the early stages. And these are the 6. And so I've had 10 failures. So to pick just 4 it's challenging. But I picked 4 that I think I learned the most from, and they're somewhat interesting. Is this going forward? Yeah. Yeah. Let me go back. So here's the 10 failures. And I found myself, after graduating from MIT, in Washington, D.C., working for a consulting firm, international consulting firm, Booz Allen and Hamilton. And my job there was and they were all government contracts. They were, quote, beltway bandits, if you were. And I found my job was to go out and find high-tech stuff and then bring it to the World Bank or the International Monetary Fund. We had contracts with all those things. And I found my first company that I really wanted to get involved in that was sort of in the startup mode. And it was a company that had raised $3 million in the penny stock market. And the name of the company, first of all, it's my first fail. So the name of the company was the International Institute of Applied Technology, which should tip anyone with any reasonable mind off that this might be a little bogus. And it was, but what they were doing in that day and age is they were connecting video disc players to Apple II computers and then programming them in such a way that you could create these video experiences, and they were using it for training for the government primarily. And they said to me, hey, you should come and be our general manager. You should work in a small company. And I was working in Booz Allen in Hamilton, and it was huge, and I didn't feel like I had much influence over what was going on, and this was a high-tech startup. At least at the time, it was a high-tech startup. Anymore, it's pretty ancient history. But, so I took the job. Now, what I didn't know about this company was that it had three major problems. The first major problem was that the CTO was spending all the money in his own consulting company, and it wasn't all the development money was going outside. The chief marketing officer had a major drug problem, and the CEO had major alcohol issues. Now, I probably should have done my due diligence, but there was a time when we had our first board meeting, and the CEO had, I think, we were in Washington. The CEO was in New York and had gotten into a fight with a police officer and was, I guess, out of commission, and he'd been released, but out of commission in a suite at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. And this is a totally true story. And so the board said, Randy, why don't you be CEO? And the first thing you have to do, and this isn't really the right thing to do to have a new CEO do, but they said you got to fire and get rid of the old CEO, who was 6'5". And I mean, the board should have fired him. But I did. It was a confrontation, and he pushed me up against the wall, and it was nasty. But he left finally. And so I went about sort of redoing the company. I fired the CMO, and I fired the CTO, and I hired new people. And I told the guys over at Booz Allen in Hamilton that I was working there, and they just so happened to be writing a contract for the Postal Service that said that you ought to have some kiosk in the front of every post office. And so I said to them, wouldn't it be great if you had a kiosk that was based on an Apple II and it had a touch panel and it had an optical disc? Could you write that into the RFP? And they said, for you, Randy, we'll write it. Which was really not ethically correct, but anyway, it was back in the day. And so the RFP went out, and EDS and a whole bunch of big major contractors bid on it. And each one of them chose us, our company, as the sub. So no matter who won, we were going to get the contract. And it wasn't a small contract. Our piece was $100 million. And I thought, wow, this is great. But remember, I said it's a public company. And public companies every year have an annual meeting. And in the annual meeting, the shareholders get to vote on the board of directors. And of course, the CEO serves at the mercy, if you will, of the board of directors. And what I didn't realize is when you added up all the shares, the ex-CEO and his buddies had more than I had. So they had the annual meeting, they voted in their board, and I was promptly escorted out. And they said, you're fired. So I got a little depressed. In fact, got a lot depressed because I thought, hey, I've done a good thing. I've worked hard to make this company successful, and yet they kicked me out. And I was angry, and I retreated back to Maine. And I spent the year living off my credit cards. I got a little shaggy. I wrote a little software, But I basically, if you live off your credit cards for too long, you don't have any money anymore. And they repo your car. And then you kind of have to go bankrupt if you have any bills. So I did that. It wasn't particularly fun. But it leads me to lesson number 1, which is never lose control of the cap table or never lose control of the ownership of the company in such a way to make sure that you can outvote everybody if you're the CEO. Otherwise, it'll get taken away from you. And I've advised startups, and I've seen them, and the venture capital people come in, and the A-League people are great, but the D-League people, not so great, and the founders get fired, and it's not particularly fun. So it just so happened this was 1984, and the Macintosh had just come out, and I thought, hey, I know how to program. I can make an IBM PC look like a Macintosh, because there was no Windows at this point in time. So I spent, I don't know, 4 months just doing this, just writing this code and writing this code and writing this code. And I was in Washington, D.C. at the time, because I had gone back and I couldn't live in the woods anymore. And so I cut my hair, and I got this product done that looked like the Macintosh on a PC. And so I reached out to Silicon Valley and some people I knew and said, hey, could you publish this? And they said, oh yeah. They took it to Comdex, which was a big conference at the time. And it was like a big hit. And so they brought me out there, and then we sold the software, and I continued to get royalties on it, and they wrote me a check for $1 million. And I'm like, okay, wait a second. 6 months ago, I was bankrupt, right? And now I have $1 million. I better take good care of that money and not waste it, and I needed to replace the car, so I got conservative about it. I don't know why every time anybody makes money, they buy a car, but it's probably the worst thing you can buy in terms of it's a depreciating asset. Well, at the time, Steve Jobs had just gotten fired from Apple Computer, and he started a company called Next. And there were only 12 people in it. And one of the people that were in it was a programmer friend of mine that I met when I had moved out to Silicon Valley. And he said, you got to come work for Steve. You got to come work for Steve. And I'm like, no, I just want to drive my Ferrari around. I don't want to do any work at all. I'm getting royalty payments. So this is better. And they said, just come talk to us. So I went over to Next, and I talked to the people there. And everybody working there were the people that I had sort of worshipped, because they were the people that created the Macintosh. And I had been reading about them in the magazines because I was trying to emulate that product. And so it was pretty special. And I had a meeting with Steve, and he said, what gets you up in the morning and makes you want to do the day? And I say, I fall asleep at night with a technical problem in my head. In the morning, I have the solution. And he said, welcome to Next, Randy. And then I told him I turned the job down. Because I just didn't see, it just wasn't, I don't know, I just didn't want to go work, I guess. And then Steve left a message on my answering machine telling me that I was blowing it, and I really needed to work at Next, and that I was an idiot, and it was the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life. I mean, he went on and on and on and on and on. And so, all right, so I joined the company. And then here's the early days. That's me with the weird mustache. And that's Susan Kerr on the left-hand side. She actually created all the fonts and all the icons and the whole look and feel of the Macintosh. And that's Bill Parkhurst on the other side, a brilliant programmer. And it was like there were 12 people there. It was just like Steve was there all the time. Steve would come up in back of me, and he would like look over my shoulder when I'm coding. And so it drove me nuts, because I don't know if you've ever been involved in something and somebody looks over your shoulder and they see what you're doing, and you're like, oh my. So I put this little meter up, and it said Randy's productivity on it, and it had an arrow. And I put it up kind of like quite productive, and then every time Steve would come up, I'd be like, it sucks. And then and he stopped. He stopped after a while. And this is what that computer looked like. The design was interesting. It had no hard disk. It had for storage an optical disk. Now, an optical disk at the time was pretty cool, because bit for bit, price per storage was extremely low for optical disk. And this was a read-write optical disk as opposed to the video disk, which I showed you before. The other thing it had, though, was very, very slow seek times and very slow data transfer times. And the software people had chosen to use I don't want to get too technical, but a Unix derivative, which is a multi-processing system, and when one program isn't in it, it throws the other program off to disk, which is the way it enables you to process more than one thing at once. However, this was the slowest disk ever, and it does a lot of this is called swapping. It does a lot of swapping. And so I sat in an engineering meeting, and with 10 people, Steve was running it, and I said, Steve, this is just going to thrash itself to death. This is going to be the slowest machine ever. And then, of course, he said, hey, who agrees with Randy that our design is wrong? And all the engineers were like, nobody agreed. And so at that point, I'm like, okay, I'm out of here. This is not going to work. This first version is going to fail. And so I started a company called Emerald City Software, which was basically desktop publishing. And I sold it after about a year and a half to Adobe. And I ended up running engineering for Adobe. I had 200 people working for me. It was the worst job I ever had in my life. It was meetings. I don't know if you like sitting in meetings, but this was 100% meetings. And the only fun we had was one time the CEO came up to me, John Warnock, and he said, we need to save trees. And I'm like, okay, John, what would you like me to do about that? And he's like, you need to create artificial paper. And I'm like, okay, is that it? You got anything else beside that? Nope, just got to create artificial paper. So I got three engineers together, and I said, we have to create something that people can use instead of paper to pass around. And so in about a month and a half, we had really 80% of what is PDF and Acrobat today, which at the time we thought, yeah, okay, he's crazy, he wants to replace paper. Now, if we were smart about it, we would have said, we want 1/100% every time someone has a PDF document. So that was going well, and then Steve called me again, and he's like, Randy, you're right, we fixed it now. Now come start a software company for Next, which leads me to my next fail, because I did. I quit Adobe, and I started a software company for Next. It was called AppSoft. Our competitors called it Crapsoft, which wasn't very nice. It's the truth. And we went to Sequoia Capital, and I got $2 million from Mike Moritz at Sequoia Capital, and we built these products for the Next machine. And in those days, you shipped software because they were in boxes. You had the physical thing you had to move around. So we had a lot of software produced. And then one night in November, Steve said, Randy, call me at night. Randy, I decided not to stop making Next hardware. And I knew it was over. We weren't going to be successful in selling that. So I called up Mike. We gave some money back. We didn't have much left, but we gave some back to Sequoia. And that leads me to lesson number 2, which is never base your business on an unproven platform that you don't control. Like if someone comes out with something new, you say, oh, I'm going to do something as a add-on to that. Or someone comes up with a new piece of hardware and it's not the number one in the market and you don't control it and it goes away. But I was left with a ton of inventory. And I was thinking, like, how do I get rid of this stuff? And at the day, the web didn't exist. And so there was something called Usenet. Usenet was a network that was a derivative of ARPANET, which was developed by the government, that connected people all around the world, that connected computers all around the world, that you actually posted stuff. So I'm like, I think I can sell this stuff on Usenet. So I posted it, and I liquidated $250,000 worth of inventory on Usenet electronically. And I was thinking, like, damn, you can sell stuff online. This is pretty cool. And then 3 months later, Mark Andreessen released the first web browser called Mosaic, running on I think Sun Microsystems primarily. And I said, damn, I'm going to start an e-commerce site. And so I went down, I said, what will people who are early adopters of the web want to buy? And they're all nerds, they're going to buy software and hardware, right? So I went down to Ingram Micro in LA, and I said, I want to sell your stuff on the internet. And they're like, yeah, see ya. So then I went back, and I got another sales guy, and I said, do you have an electronic copy of your catalog? And they said, yeah. I said, could you send it to me on a disk or something? They said, yeah. I said, if I give you an address to drop ship something to, will you drop ship it? And they're like, yeah, we'll do that. I'm like, cool, send me your catalog. And so we created the Internet Shopping Network, which was really the first e-commerce site. And the person that helped me program it was Mark Andreessen, because he hadn't even joined Netscape at the time. And it was pretty cool. We went to the first Internet World, and we were approached by the Home Shopping Network, and they bought the company. It was only 3 months old. And, you know, the only thing about that was, and this is their logo, it's fun here. The only thing about that was, this is my boss. That's Barry Diller. He's not the nicest guy in the world. And so I spent the next 3 years trying to escape that company and stop working for Barry. And Barry took a big interest in the internet, and as you know, he owns Tinder, and he owns a whole bunch of other properties now. So lesson number 3 is, when somebody buys your company, think about how fun it will be to work there, or plot your exit as quickly as possible. The good news about this, and the fun part about it, was that when we were really the first e-commerce M&A activity, or any of the web activity, really. So these 2 guys came to me and had lunch with me one day, and they said, Netscape's offered to buy us for $1 million. And I said, you know what, why don't you talk to venture capitalists? And they said, we don't trust venture capitalists. And I'm like, I just lost $2 million of Mike Maritz's money, and he still talks to me, and he's very friendly. And they said, okay, we'll go talk to him. So the 4 of us sat in a room, and Jerry and David and Mike and I, and Mike said, I'll give you $1 million for 20% of your company. And they said, well, that sounds like a much better deal. We'll take that deal. And that investment turned out to be worth, depending on when you exited, between $30 and $60 billion. It was one of the best investments. And they offered me an opportunity to co-invest, and I turned it down, which is probably the dumbest thing I've ever done. But that wasn't a fail. The next fail is one which my wife and I were sitting around with a whole bunch. I'm an early adopter, so I have probably every gadget you could possibly have sitting in my garage that I never use anymore. And we're like, let's sell it on eBay. So we tried to take a picture of it and list it, and it was like, oh, this is so much work. You should just be able to take it down and drop it somewhere, and someone lists it and take 20%. So we created a company called Auction Drop. You drop it off, we sell it on eBay, was our trademark. And everybody thought it was like the first mile of eBay, and everybody thought it was such a great idea. We had a board like you couldn't believe. We had Tim Draper on our board. We had Heidi Roizen on our board, a big venture capitalist now. We had the CEO of Macy's on our board. We had Ron Johnson, who invented the Apple Store, on our board. And we had Jerry Gramaglia, who was the COO at E-Trade, on our board. And we created 5 stores in the Bay Area that you could take stuff and drop it off, and we'd sell it for you on eBay. This was Ron Johnson's store. You see how sort of austere it is, and sort of Apple Store-esque in a sense. Anyway, they're all profitable. And we thought, oh my gosh, we've got 5 stores that are profitable. How do we scale this? And I was thinking, like, well, we can't have, what we did at the store is truck came by, we picked it all up, took it to a processing center that we had built and processed it all, listed it on eBay, and sold it. I said, well, we can't really do that all across the country, so let's just figure out how we can take a brick and mortar operation and collect items that people want to sell. So we went down to LA and we talked to people that run the UPS store, and they said, absolutely yes, we can turn every one of our UPS stores, 3,700 of them, into drop-off things for Auction Drop. And we don't want to take a piece of the action, we'll just take the shipping to ship it to you. And so we said, oh, okay. So I went to SoftBank, and they gave us $12 million to build this whole thing out. And so we built this processing plant. We figure each of the stores that we had in the Bay Area that was doing maybe 100 items a day, we're going to turn on 3,700 stores. Stupid Randy thinks he can turn on 3,700 stores all at once. Well, we basically got enough processing power to be able to do that. And then we trained all the stores. We put billboard advertising in all the major metros. We had stickers for the windows of the UPS store. They rolled the thing out. And after we did that with those 3,700 stores, our items per day only increased 400 total. Yeah, that's what I said, oh. And the board said more than oh. And so I'm trying to figure, like, why is this happening? So I flew around to all these UPS stores, like, why aren't you adopting this program? And they said, look, we used to be mailboxes, et cetera. They bought us. They make us do all this stuff we don't want to do. We're not doing it anymore. The last one we lost money on, and we put our foot down. And hardly anybody adopted the program. And once again, the board said, you're fired. So the lesson on this, lesson number 4, is always test your market before you scale. I know that Starbucks does that when they bring out new stuff, but I just thought, hey, let's just go big or go home, which was not really the best thing to do. And finally, my last fail that I want to talk about is a search engine that we created to compete with Google. Bad idea. But anyway, the thought was that we would take pictures of every web page on the web. We would index them like Google indexes them. And then we would enable you, when you did a search, and if you put in 2 search words, within 100 milliseconds, we'd show you the top 10, but you could just flip through them and flip through them and flip through them. And you could drag and drop them, make a stack of them. Then you could put 10 web pages together and send them to somebody. And when you clicked on them, it just morphed into a web browser on that page. And so we ended up with 6 million, 7 million people using this thing. We raised $65 million. At the end, it was a $250 million pre-money valuation. And Microsoft came to us and offered a $200 million buyout. But the last people who put in at a $250 million said no. And it was 2007. And you know how rising money was in 2007? It wasn't so good. The company crashed and burned 18 months later. But while we were building that company, I was working from midnight to 3 in the morning writing, lesson number 5, sorry. High valuation is not a good thing. I was working from midnight to 3 in the morning writing the software for Funny or Die, which was a super fun thing. They did that first, I don't know if you saw it, the video of the little girl, and she's the landlord. When Nikki and I, my wife and I, saw that the first time, we're going like, this is either going to be really good or just horrible. And it took off, and when we took the password off and we didn't advertise it, and it was a destination site, 3 days later we're getting 3 million video views a day. So it was crazy. So anyway, 5 lessons. Never lose control of your company. Don't depend on unproven platforms. Never sell your company to jerks. Sorry, Barry. Always test before you scale. And high valuations are not always good. 90% of startups fail, and they fail mostly because they run out of money before they get product market fit. So what I'm doing now, my wife and I own a company called C-Level Solutions. It's helping startups with tech, minimum viable product market fit, sales funnels, marketing plans, and fundraising. And if you click on this QR code, which is probably one on the table, you can go to our website and you can sign up, and we'll talk to you for free for half an hour and give you advice. And if there's some way we can help you in a long-term contract, we'll do it. But it's been a fun ride. Just want to thank you all for being here.
Wow, Randy. Wow. You totally blew my mind.
Oh, come on.
I want to click on that QR code and have a call for 30 minutes.
Go. Hey,
it will be completely irrelevant for you.
It doesn't matter. I get a lot of relevant calls every day.
I'll bet you do. I'll bet you do. So I love this framing of like failure being a really important tool. And I'm wondering, like, when along the way were you like, oh, failing is like giving me feedback and shaping my career? Like, when did you start to really adapt to it as like a function?
Well, I think you just have to kind of survive. And I don't think that I could do anything other than, well, I am doing stuff now, but I have to be in the startup world, and I probably will be. And I probably will be working with startups until they, put me in the ground. And so it just felt like, okay, that didn't work. Let's try something else. Let's try something else. Okay, that didn't work. And sometimes it didn't work because the timing wasn't right. Like, there's some ideas that I think that failed that will probably be very successful 5 years from now or 10 years from now. I mean, there's things like bandwidth limit things. When you're doing dial-up modems, you can't do video and things like that. And the AI is going to change everything. And the AI combined with like human-like avatars that you can't tell the difference if they're real or not is going to blow people's minds. And that's coming really quickly, and it's probably scary as heck because it's sort of a combination of deep fake AI and chatbots that are they're real.
Well, thank you for those nightmares, Randy. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Questions from the audience? Aaron. Why Bend?
We went to Bend because my daughter lived in Bend, and she came here. Lives in Bend, and she came here before us. And we have 2 grandkids. from her, and we thought we'd seen a lot of Bend and visiting, and we thought this place is a really cool place. I mean, people are nice. It's like the best of all worlds, and so until it closed down in COVID, and then it became like everything else. But Bend's special.
It is. I agree.
And we love it.
Well, it's really good to have you here. It is a special place. We have a lot of good stuff going on. I know I have a question over here.
I was curious,
did you find an underwriting partner at Avenue?
Avenue, he's referring to a company started where I was a CTO and CIO of in Los Angeles that basically was doing insurance for autonomous vehicles. And the big problem we ran into is we decided that we were going to do a real insurance company, which means that you need underwriters and you can't just be like a broker. And we were trying to do a $50 million raise, and it didn't work. So no, we did not. They did pivot though after I departed, and I think they're doing technology for autonomous vehicles that assess risk.
Hey, we have a question in the theater.
We're ready for you.
If you were to invest in an emerging technology now, what would it be?
AI.
I thought you were going to say dating apps.
I have a client who has a dating app. It's interesting. He has a dating app that unites communities, and he has a dating app for Albanians, and Albanians who move to New York City, and it turns out you can create these vertical dating apps, because if you have come from a culturally segregated, in a sense, cultural society, that you want to meet people that are also from that. And so yeah, he's I think I just helped him raise 4.6 million euros. So
that's wild.
Hey Randy, can you be more specific on the AI? Like
be more
what
specific.
Segment or industry or?
Oh, and AI?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be across all segments, to tell you the truth. I mean, it's certainly in medicine, right? There's going to be a lot of things that are coming out now based on trained systems that are neural net based. In the artificial intelligence sense, that in the whole e-commerce space, in the whole human interaction where half of it's not human. So it's in, neural net basically enables you to train models that if you give them inputs will predict the outcome. And if you think about that, that's what we do a lot. Like we think about, if you start this company and these are all your parameters, is it going to be successful? So whenever, the venture capital community now, bless their hearts, they do support a lot of things, but they're not right very much of the time, and consequently, the bigger firms have to have a unicorn, because they might get one or two companies that will make their fund and get their return, where 95% of the others some of them might be successful, 5%, but they won't make the fund. So I think this in detection of what makes a good business, there's certainly an intuitive sense, but I think at some point AI will surpass our intuition and our ability to figure out ourselves, and we can depend on it. Hopefully, it won't turn on us.
I'm wondering. God, Randy. Okay, I'm wondering, what do you do for fun? Like that's not work. That's not like all this wild stuff. What do you like? Do you go out for walks or? My
son, I like to ski, and bachelor's so close. Although we've had some tough times this year weather-wise, but my son is. My 13-year-old is at Seven Peaks, and they have every Friday their Wintermeister where you go, and so I go out with them and try to keep up with them. That's all. So I do that, and we have fun.
Oh, I love that. Good. I'm glad. Any other questions in the room? Any questions in the theater? Aaron, any questions from you? I mean, I'll ask questions all night. Truly, Randy, this has just been such an amazing pleasure. We're so lucky to have you here. I actually have a gift for you. This is our tradition. Okay, Randy, it's kind of a big deal. We have the PubTalk Stein. You can bring this back to a future PubTalk, and we will fill it for you.
So McMenamins will fill this whenever I'm here?
Well, I think, is it only during PubTalk, or will they? Yeah, they'll pretty much. I think for you, yes. I think absolutely they will.
That's my wife over there talking.
That's funny because I'm like, I have a feeling she's a good time. When you're just talking, I'm like, these people are fun. Thank you, Randy. It's such an honor.
Thank you very much.
Listen, you're getting a call from this one, okay? And it's going to be a good time. Thank you. Yeah, I will bring, if that's what it takes, yes. I have a good hookup for that. Thank you so much for joining us, Randy, really, truly. So, I am, as a reminder, going to let you know that our EDCO annual luncheon is set for May 6th, and you can find out more about the international keynote and author, Tim Harford. More information about him and his talk will be on the EDCO events page. So reserve your tickets and tables early. It usually fills up. And we'll be back at it for another Pub Talk again on April 22nd here at McMenamins. I cannot wait. But before that, Reddy's, REDI's, News and Brews returns to Initiative Brewing in Redmond on April 14th at 4:30 p.m. So watch Reddy's website for registration because space will be limited. Thank you all so much for attending tonight in all the ways. Stay safe, stay healthy, enjoy the rest of spring break, and we'll see you again next month. I'm Shannon Kelly. I'm so honored to be here with you all. Thank you.